Welcome to the Wildflowers in the Sky YouTube channel. My name is Marissa Bing, and I am an astrologer, a teacher, and a forever student of topics that include manifestation, cosmology, philosophy, depth psychology, and all things spiritual. I am brimming with passion and focus on helping you uncover the depths of astrology, and I am determined to help you see your life through a lens that is both empowering and purposeful. If you are looking to expand your knowledge of astrology or develop new perspectives through which you can just view your life through, or just simply be provided with thought-provoking material, then look no further. This YouTube channel has one goal, and that goal is to encourage positive and powerful shifts. Shifts in self-understanding, shifts in understanding others, and shifts in understanding this world. Thank you so much for being here. Let's get started. Hello, welcome back. I'm actually recording this in the daytime. It's like 12:43, so hopefully not too shrilly of light. It's kind of like overcast, so it's nice. I am trying to produce more lo-fi tracks for the background. I have this like music project, and we're so close to releasing our music. We have like 6 different songs, EDM songs, and we're so close, and I'm so excited. And then I keep forgetting that I need to like also produce lo-fi tracks for this, because I think I have like 4 or 5, and then I just produced one yesterday or the day before, but it's like one of those like not background, but just like, you know, busy work things to do, so I keep forgetting, and so I'm sorry that the songs keep getting like very, very repetitive and whatnot. So anyway, if you keep hearing the same songs over and over again, like that's why. Also, if like my voice kind of gets like quiet or raspier, I have a fear that my body is potentially fighting tonsillitis right now. Back in 2019, I first ever got tonsillitis. I don't know how I got it. Apparently you can just get it because I have tonsils still. And fortunately, you know, even though I lost my voice and everything, it wasn't like a permanent. All my friends who've had it had permanent damage to their voice, and I'm a singer, and fortunately, my voice is exactly as it has always been. I didn't know though that once you get it, you can keep getting it. That's why people usually just remove their tonsils, but I don't want to remove my tonsils, because if you remove your tonsils, then again, your voice. So anyway, the other day I found myself very aware of like my swallowing, and it felt like there was like something in my throat, and so I just kept like swallowing or like trying to clear my throat. And then as I was like articulating what I was doing, because I was like trying to explain what I was experiencing, I was reminded of explaining this back in 2019, and I was like, holy shit, I hope not. So I'm like doing all the things I can think of to like try to like prevent this from happening. And I'm hoping that I'm like a very exaggerative person, but also like if it's something like this, like with like my voice, then I get very scared easily. So that's when I'll get like a little exaggerative. Anyway, one of the other symptoms, and I don't remember if this was a symptom that I experienced back in the day though, is this like tiredness around my voice, but not like as if like the muscle itself, like the vocal box itself is like is tired. I won't actually hear it, I just feel it. So that's another thing that I've been experiencing sometimes too. So yesterday when I recorded Moon and Leo, the entire time I did not want to talk. So the entire time it was just like very like raspier. I don't know. This is a tangent. Let's get to the what we're doing here. All right, let me share my screen. This episode is focused on Mercury in Pisces. So on March 2nd at around 2:57 p.m., the planet Mercury left the airy flights of Aquarius and it swan dived swando into Pisces, where it will remain for the next few weeks before igniting into Aries on March 18th at 9:24 p.m. PST. It will not go retrograde while it is in Pisces. And when it is in Aries, it will not retrograde back into Pisces. So this is its one time in Pisces during the year 2023. Almost forgot what year it is. And I thought a bit on how to structure this episode because I want to give some context on Mercury as a whole. As everyone knows, a passion of mine is sharing information and teaching. And if you have been like watching or listening for a while, whether the podcast or YouTube, and you still are, then it's probably because you have some form of appreciation for my passion for that. Otherwise, I imagine my content can be kind of boring for people who just want horoscopes, considering my content is certainly less prediction and more education based. Not to mention, I don't know, I don't like stuffing people's lives and feelings into like generalized predictions, limiting, like outlooks and experiences. I don't know. I just like to like empower people to use like the present astrological energies to their own benefit and empower people to create their own future as a result. But the tangent aside, I also don't want to go. I don't want to go too deep into Mercury on this episode because that can be saved for like an educational episode focused specifically on the planet Mercury at a later time. So we can have like an episode focused on Mercury because that is its own like archetypal concept as well. But that said, to understand Mercury and Pisces, we still need to have, a collective understanding of the planet Mercury as a whole, including the mythology behind it. So, and we need to have understanding of Pisces, as well as Mercury's purpose in the chart and the culmination of it all mixed together. So because of that, I decided to, we're going to kind of like have a little bit of a discussion on Mercury and Pisces and then Mercury in Pisces. And then we're going to talk about the horoscopical questions because as we may or may not know, instead of giving predictions, I'll ask, I like to give questions to prompt you to create your own futuristic determinations and how you will create your own future with regard to the questions I've created based on the astrological energies. So let's do this. Mercury. So as you'll hear me say over and over and over and over and over and over again about literally every single concept within astrology, it is my opinion that Mercury is a bit misunderstood, though possibly Mercury is one of the most known planets with regard to astrology, of course. So there is some degree of knowledge as a whole. And of course, we can thank the ever-feared Mercury retrograde. Now, I have a ton to say about Mercury retrograde, but that's not what this episode is about. That will have to be saved for another episode where I actually break down the factual reasons for why Mercury retrograde is nothing to fear. But in 3 quick bullet points, we don't have to fear Mercury retrograde because 1, Mercury retrograde has been happening since the dawn of time. It hasn't, nor will it ever, result in an apocalypse. Legit, like one of the most neutral planets in existence. We are not talking about Pluto or Saturn here. Number 2, unless your chart or sun is ruled by Mercury or Mercury plays a huge role in your chart, the truth is not all Mercury retrogrades will even directly affect you. They can affect you via others, like if it's affecting a friend, then you might experience it through them. But unless your chart is activated by the transiting Mercury, meaning the current Mercury gliding through the sky today, you have a chance of not being affected by it. And lastly, the simple act of practicing awareness can easily balance out any effects brought out as a result of Mercury's influence. So if the answer to this ever-fearing thing is just practicing awareness, then it truly doesn't require so much at the end of the day. And it probably really isn't that big of a deal, in my opinion. So that said, even though the understanding might be misguided, it is pretty cool that even the most like astrologically ignorant person out there can potentially know Mercury retrograde or has heard the concept Mercury retrograde, even if they don't understand it. So let's talk Mercury. To start us off, I do have a cute little quote from Carl Jung that I found in one of Karen hamaker-zondag's book, Psychological Astrology. He says the resource of the human psyche and its essential nature are very probably determined by the instinct to think and reflect. Another way to say this is that the instinct to think and reflect are the determining factors of the resources of the human psyche and its essential nature. Thinking and reflecting are powerful capabilities. Via just a simple thought, we can create universes. Via reflection, we can grow and develop our souls. One of my most favorite things to do is to think and to daydream. I'm a huge daydreamer. Never a day goes by that I haven't at least like stared off in the distance out my window, daydreaming about sweet nothings. My imagination is boundless. I am strongly Mercurial and Neptunian, and that's a great combination if you want me as a result. So I think we can all agree that thinking is mega valuable, and wouldn't you know that the act of mental processing is within Mercury's domain. Mercury is associated with thinking, reflecting, analyzing, collecting, and disseminating information, exchanging information and ideas, aka socializing, and creating connections like point A to point B, which can then encompass basic travel. You know, you go from one point to another, connecting your home to your work, as well as technology. All parts are connected and consistently exchanging data to work properly. Mercury is also associated with craftiness and sharpening a skill or a talent, lending it to a level of education. It's not a visionary and invested. It's not a visionaryistic planet or invested deeply in that kind of stuff as Jupiter is, but Mercury is a clever little planet that likes being able to do a lot of different things, which means having a lot of different hobbies and improving the skills around it. In the same resource, Psychological Astrology, Karen hamaker-zondag says, thinking, reflecting, analyzing, and exchanging ideas are processes ascribed to Mercury by traditional astrology and treated by modern psychology as the expression of an instinctive behavior pattern that, like all other archetypal factors, is present in each of us. So I think we're starting to get the point that Mercury is much to do with thinking, connecting, exchanging, etc. But it really goes so much deeper than that. Mercury is associated with our minds, and our minds are powerful, powerful things. How we choose to think of something can entirely alter the way that we approach it and the ending result of a particular situation. We can entirely alter the way that we approach something just by the way we choose to think about something. We manifest situations with our decided attitude, and our attitude is entirely based upon our thoughts. If I'm thinking negative thoughts about something, it's going to put me into a sour attitude, and as a result, I'm going to manifest a sour experience because I'm creating that energy around me. I'm being sour to others, so they're being sour in return. However, had I chosen to refrain my thoughts, pulled myself out of the pitfall of negative thoughts I drowned myself in, and decided to think in a more optimistic way while maintaining a realistic view, then I wouldn't have had a sour attitude, and then people wouldn't have been sour in return. And who knows what doors might have opened for me as a result. In Liz Green and Howard Suspordis' book, Luminaries, Liz Green says, the rule is that if you alter your attitude, you alter the whole situation. Such is the power of the mind, the power of the mental plane. As the Rosicrucians, I think I spelled that wrong, I believe it's Rosicrucians, are fond of saying, thoughts have wings. She also shares a slightly different perspective and thought on Mercury than what is commonly discussed, and that is, Mercury can thus be associated with the unexpected, coincidence and the synchronicity, or with events which seem accidental but may later have meaning or prove to serve a greater purpose. Hopefully, our minds are starting to warm up a bit to the idea of Mercury. So before I make this episode about Mercury, because trust me, I could talk all day about it, let's move forward to the myth. The myth I'm going to focus on is the Greek Hermes. As Liz Green puts it, the Greek Hermes, quote, serves to illustrate and amplify how the mercurial principle manifests astrologically and psychologically, end quote. It's important to note that all planets have myths surrounding them, and quite fascinating is the fact that different cultures have different mythological characters and names for the stories behind each planet. However, those stories always blend so nicely with one another. Even though it's a different name, a different character, different circumstances, each culture managed to somehow have similar mythological stories, resulting in the characteristics of these astrological foundations we now study today. In the same resource, Liz Green comments on this when she says, equivalent archetypes show up in many different cultures. Besides the Roman Mercury, we have Thoth, I believe that's how you say his name, right? Thoth in Egypt, who is known as the Lord of Holy Words. A mercurial Hermes-like figure is found in Nordic mythology in the guise of Loki. Coyote is a North American trickster equivalent to Hermes, and the Inuits called him Raven. If you're like me and you geek out over all this stuff, then definitely study all the different equivalent archetypes, because it is through studying these myths that we can further improve our understanding of the planets as a whole. And if you study the planets, then you can have better understandings of the signs. In the same way, if you study the elements and the modalities, the more that you study all of these things, these foundations, the more that you're going to understand astrology as a whole. Whoops, I didn't mean to change the... Got a little excited there. So regarding Hermes, Liz Green says, Hermes has a bewildering number of roles in Greek mythology. He is a thief, the magician, the craftsman, the messenger of gods, the god of boundaries, commerce, merchants, words, and language. Hermes is deaf a crafty little sneak, and if you're interested in the story of him, you can check out my video, the Virgo Conspiracy video. My video, The Virgo Conspiracy, where I go more into detail on this. But Hermes is fascinating because he is the only god who is able to travel between all the different realms. He can go down into Hades, he can pop into the mortal world, he can float up into the heavens, which is also why he is the messenger of gods. He was incredibly clever, very skilled, very, very sneaky. If we look closely at his characteristics, we can almost make out the image of the planet Mercury. For certain, we can see why the two are linked. Hermes' main gift was the way he used his mind. In myth, he outwits all the gods, and his ability to think fast saved his life multiple times. He's not the strongest, nor the most powerful, but his ability to use his mind to manipulate, to trick, to see from different perspectives and views and recreate as a result, or it just makes him like a very fascinating god. Perhaps I'm also very biased because I am a very mercurial person, and a lot of his traits are things that either I recognize within myself or value as a talent in other people. And of course, I will say this with a disclaimer that I, obviously in a positive way, I would never do like even 7/8 of what he's known to have done. He is a very, very objective kind of, a lot of his characteristics are very, very objective. He lacks a lot of humanness. He lacks a lot of empathy. But that's Mercury. Mercury is a very objective planet. It's not emotional by any means. Anyway, the point is, in myth, Hermes' major gift was his use of his mind. And with Mercury, the main focus we have is thought, which all to do with the mind. Through Hermes, we can see that Mercury has a lot of faces, but no matter, we always return to one particular area: the mind. Now let's talk about Pisces. Pisces is a beautiful sign, full of creativity, imagination, intuition, and more. Pisces is one of my top 5 favorite signs for sure. I do have a love for all the signs, but my top 5 favorite signs are definitely, and This is in no particular order. Virgo, Scorpio, Capricorn, Pisces, and the fifth one actually honestly always changes depending on my season, but I've never changed my mind on these particular four. So I suppose I should have just said my top four. Anyway, Pisces is a yin mutable water sign. Yin indicates its passivity and receptivity. Mutable, it being a mutable sign, indicates its versatility, its flexibility, its changeability. And the water element clues us in on its preference of approaching the world via emotions. So the key word here is emotions, and emotions are down in our body, in our soul. But we're just talking about, the reason I'm pointing out the keyword being emotions is because we were just talking about how Mercury is up in the mind. Emotions lend themselves to be more of a subjective form of thought, but we were also just talking about how Mercury is naturally a very objective kind of planet. So this combination makes for a very interesting experience. However, before we go into Mercury and Pisces combination, we still need to discuss Pisces a bit more and get some additional context. So let's talk about feelings. In her book Psychological Astrology, hamaker-zondag says, feelings and deep emotions are characteristics of the signs Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, which belong to our last element, water. The great emotionality and vulnerability of the water type go hand in hand with its emotional uncertainty and instability. People of this type are easily influenced by their surroundings. However, this should not be regarded as a weakness, but as a result of their emotional receptivity and readiness to enter into folks' feelings. The ability to put themselves in someone else's place is so great that often without knowing it, they quickly adopt the behavior and ideas of others. As mentioned in my video on Moon and Cancer, water signs have a presentness about them, but particularly Pisces. Pisces is a sign that moves with blurred boundaries. There's typically an inner knowing and deep understanding around about connections. Pisces' amplified sensitivity leads it to be a master empath, and with it being so sympathetic to others, it often sacrifices itself in some way to benefit another. They have this they need it more than me kind of thinking, which is why Pisces is often associated with the martyr. Because of Pisces' blurred boundaries and empathic capabilities, it often can immerse itself into whatever or whoever is before it. And like a shapeshifter, take whoever or whatever is before it on that form. Take on that, thing's form, as a shapeshifter does. And this is why it's imperative that all Pisces not only implement boundaries, but also ensure that they shake off the immersive experience and return back to themselves when they're finished or when they go home or whatever is the case. As a result, many of Pisces can forget or lose track of their own thoughts and beliefs and values, kind of get convinced that the persona that they just wore is their own. This ability to merge itself with others is a great superpower when used constructively. Their ability to feel into and reflect the same energies as the person they're with is truly, truly a powerful skill if they have the boundaries necessary. In his book, The Inner Sky, Stephen Forrest says, Pisces directs attention away from the physical reality towards awareness itself. Pisces must play out its creative inspirations, whether in the form of art or in pure fantasy of secret daydreams. Why? Because in the free play of imagination, we experience the inner world as solid and real. And finally, I have a few quotes from Liz Green's book, Astrology for Lovers. She says, Pisces has a longing for and a sense of some other reality, something transcendent, magically elusive, that makes ordinary life seem drab and meaningless. For another thing, Pisces has a deep wisdom about the futility of so many human desires. She also says, although the intuition may be lightning quick and the intellect brilliant, Pisces will often overlook something simple like the electricity bill. Additionally, she mentions the whole concept of being limited by time, space, and other people is intensely irritating to Pisces. Its mind is on larger things. So we can gather that on top of everything else, Pisces has a spiritual side to it, where it seeks the divine on some level, where it's capable of intensely intimate connections and, as a result, also likely to miss smaller details, as well as just in general how big-pictured Pisces is overall. So, as a recap, Pisces is imaginative, creative, big-pictured, empathic, sensitive, sympathetic, potentially martyr-like, present, and hungry for transcendental experiences. When we compare this to the ever-mega mind of Hermes and his objectivity and lack of empathy, or when we compare this to Mercury's major association with the mind in comparison to Pisces' clear association with the heart, we can see that Mercury and Pisces makes for an interesting combination. In her book, Psychological Astrology, Karen Hamaker-Zondag does touch on the concept of expressing feelings into words. And I share this quote because we are working with Mercury, which is associated with expressing and exchanging ideas and information, as well as thought and logic. And Pisces, which is ever present in the world of emotions and intangible concepts like energy and emotions. She says, because his motivation is purely emotional, the person of the water type can seldom render a reason for his conclusions. He has many difficulties with thought and logic. Due to the total subjectivity of feelings, an objective approach to life is impossible for someone of the pure water type. With all of that said, let's start to mix together Pisces and Mercury. In Liz Green and Howard Sosborda's book, Luminaries, we learned that with Mercury in Pisces comes a vivid imagination, but also chaotic thinking. Mercury in Pisces often has a creative imagination and is highly intuitive and telepathic, but it can also experience a great deal of mental confusion and instability. Vivid imagination. Pisces is imaginative, and Mercury rules the mind where the imagination lives. Chaotic thinking. We mentioned earlier that Pisces can be so big-pictured and focused on the more energetic parts of life to the point of missing mundane details such as an electricity bill. Mercury in Pisces can easily pick up other people's thoughts and feelings. In the same source, Sosbordas also mentions, quote, they tend to learn through osmosis, absorbing or intuiting information and ideas, rather than learning or reasoning in a logical fashion. And as with Mercury in any water sign, it might be hard to fathom what they're really thinking. They can be rather secretive and often make clever strategists or good poker players. It's not always easy for them to put the mass of things they feel into words, except perhaps through poetry, dance, music, dance, or some other plastic art forms, end quote. I don't know about anyone else, but I was a bit lost when he said plastic art forms, and I figured maybe it's like an outdated concept because I think this book was written in like the 90s or 80s. I can't remember. I was supposed to check. I totally forgot. Anyway, I googled it and it came up that plastic arts or art forms they involve physical manipulation of a plastic medium by molding or modeling, such as sculptures or ceramics. Anyway, so we can see that as far as using the mind goes, Mercury in Pisces achieves this via a more energetic way, which makes sense. Absorbing and intuiting information, kind of like channeling, probably amplifying whatever clair we use most. So for claircognizant, just like knowing things, clairsentient, like we feel things, clairaudience, we hear things, whatever clair we have, we're probably going to have a bit more of that amplified. It seems that maybe communication isn't going to be as easy. However, as Karen Hamaker-Zondag also pointed out in an earlier quote, Karen Hamaker-Zondag pointed that out in an earlier quote that communication wasn't going to be as easy because she mentioned that, when we're wrapped up in our emotions, expression doesn't come as easy. Because, connecting the thoughts and articulating the information is a little bit more difficult. And it makes sense. Emotions are irrational and intangible. It's kind of like trying to grab water as it flows out of a faucet and then somehow wrapping a string around it to connect it to something else. It's not really possible. In her book, Planetary Symbolism, Karen Hamaker-Zondag says, when in Pisces, Mercury often has more to do with the way in which individual facts and phenomena are seen. It operates here in an unstructured way and is governed by the feelings and by a strong desire for change because of the mutable cross, which usually amounts to a quick succession of mutual images and ideas. So let's gather this all together. Mercury in Pisces can lead us to being exceptionally imaginative. It can influence a deeper understanding of things like archetypes or myths or legends. Communication may weaken a bit. We might become a bit more reserved, and depending on how this interacts with our chart, if we're feeling it hard, we may struggle in finding the right words. We may be more quiet or passive, and our feelings might take precedence. The war between subjectivity and objectivity might exist, and we could find ourselves easily impressionable and highly sympathetic towards others. But before we take a look at our horoscopical questions, we do need to consider any aspects that are occurring to Mercury, which there is one. In this particular case, we have good old Saturn, and I'm actually really quite happy that we do have Saturn because Saturn can help stabilize the Piscean waves rocking us. So we do have a quote from Howard Susportus. In his book, Inner Planets, he says, Saturn will stabilize and focus the mind, improving powers of concentration and enabling us to think practically and logically. He continues that the willingness to work hard and remain determined will be present, especially regarding learning something new. He also says, but we mustn't forget that Saturn is the celestial school teacher, the thorn in our side, driving us on to greater achievements. He comments that Saturn adds weight to and deepens the mind, giving Mercury the steadiness and pressure to remain grounded. So I believe Saturn can help us out. It can help dry up some of the Piscean drip and bring us some grounded energy and increase the ability to focus, concentrate, think practically, something that can be difficult for water signs. Think of it as like putting sand or dirt into a bucket of water and, kind of soaking up some of the liquid. It is important to note that Saturn is in Aquarius, so even it is conjunct Mercury, but it is technically out of sign. So to some people, that doesn't count, but to others, it does count. In my opinion, it counts, but it does make it a little different. It does change it a little bit, and because it is in an air sign, I actually think it kind of brings. I think it can help bring a little bit more of a detachment, a thicker level of objectivity that could really help provide a stronger influence, a stronger level of balance that we might need. So in preparation of our horoscopical questions, I also want us to check out really quickly what Susportus has to say in regard to Mercury just being in our chart in general. And he says, with regard to Mercury being in our chart, we quote, we are meant to be curious and inventive in the sphere of life associated with the house in which Mercury is placed. It is an area of life where we are meant to keep an open mind, where we ought to be flexible and young. So this Mercury in Pisces season, we stay imaginative, creative. We tap into the energies that become present to us because it's likely we will be learning via them. We keep an eye on our level of subjectivity. Remember, our thoughts will be shaping our attitude. If our thinking caps are placed on our feelings, then we are missing a lot of the picture and can potentially have some unflattering results. We remain gentle and patient with ourselves and others as we attempt to navigate stringing together our thoughts and communications within these murky waters, and we take the time to really connect with others socially and allow them to connect with us. We have our disclaimers. Because this is a generalized look at astrological energies, please take everything that I say with a grain of salt. Accuracy only comes with consultation of your own personal chart. The best way to use this information is by reviewing where and how these energies I list occur in your own chart. And please always refer to your rising sign, as that increases likelihood of accuracy. Generalized horoscopes are always written based entirely on rising signs, and as such, you should refer to that. let's look at the questions. Beginning with Pisces. Pisces, how can we ensure awareness around our thoughts and the resulting effects on our attitude? What can we do to practice implementing a level of objectivity and practicality with regard to how we are perceiving and understanding the happenings around us? Perception is everything, and too much subjectivity can cause our perceptions to go off kilter. What can we do to ensure equilibrium, balance, and stability in our mental sphere? Aries, how do all the things buried deep in our subconscious and unconscious currently affect our present-day perceptions of the world? We often grow up having similar beliefs and values to that of our parents because we are taught to see the world as they do. They impress their perceptions onto us and we integrate them into our own character until we grow out of it. But there are many memories, experiences, lessons, influences, and more that lay active in the underwater realm of the subconscious, and we are unconsciously letting those things color our current perception. What efforts can we take to sift and sort through some of those experiences that lay in the subconscious and identify, should they still color our perceptions and should they still create our current realities? Taurus, how do our social groups, circle of friends, and those we align ourselves with color our current perception and understanding of the world? How can we ensure that the beliefs and values and visions and thoughts and perspectives we have on the world are actually our own and not an impression pressed onto us by our social groups? How can we form better boundaries so that we can participate and hear out and even sympathize or empathize with the different perspectives, but also hold tight to our own the level of open-mindedness? Gemini, what are our current thoughts when thinking of our dream aspirations? What kinds of thoughts do we have? Are they positive, negative, neutral? How are our thoughts affecting the attainment of our dreams? In what way can we change our perception of the world to benefit us and actually help us achieve our goals and achieve our dreams? Sometimes we have deep-seated beliefs that result in subconscious thoughts, of which negatively impact and derail our ability to move forward. For example, for the longest time, I thought I believed 100% of my dreams, and then during one of the rounds of Manifestation Babe, I realized that I actually never believed I could achieve my dreams. I never did. The entire life, I never did. So no wonder I never achieved them. And then once I realized that, I started reframing that. So what can we do to ensure our thoughts, even our subconscious ones, the ones that we're not aware of, are supporting our aspirations? Cancer, how can we effectively share the information we want to share? How can we effectively disseminate the wisdom we embody? What can we do to give voice to the perceptions we've picked up and made our own, and provide that influence for others so they can benefit from our own understandings? We may all be connected, but we intentionally and purposely cross the paths of particular souls for the purpose of influencing, teaching, guiding, etc. How can we pull back and see the big picture a bit more clearly to appreciate how we have gotten to this point in our journey, to appreciate the insight, the wisdom, and understandings we've attained at this point in our journey? Leo, what can we do to identify those things that are less obvious and almost hidden from life? How can we ferret out the truths of situations or experiences, of existences as a whole? What is our current perspective of life, of existence, of humanity and beyond? Why do we have those perceptions? What is impressed upon us by a friend or family member or mentor or teacher? Are there any beliefs we embody that contradict one another? Which one is right and which one is true for us? For example, I struggle in this area with money. I'm the mantra queen when it comes to how money is an unlimited resource that will always give. And then I also have deep-seated beliefs around working hard for money because I have an impoverished background. With my awareness, I can work on this and, correct that and release one of the beliefs and keep the other. What are your truths that you need to work on, and what are your truths that you need to release? Virgo, when was the last time that you took an explorative round on yourself? When did you last take the time to really connect with yourself and see all the hidden, taboo, unforgiven, tucked away parts of yourself? What can we do in this time period to make space to do that? If wanted, we can start with another person, a close friend, a lover, a family member, etc. What are the parts of them that irritate you, that you judge, that you don't like, that we're very unattracted to? Are we able to identify those same qualities within ourselves? And Is it okay that we work to integrate some love for those qualities towards ourselves so we can become much more whole? Libra, how can we ensure that all the things we do are with purpose and we're not just flitting the hours away on random distractions? What can we do to ensure we take a minute to pause and reflect on our day, what we're doing, what we've done, what we plan to do? If we tend to prioritize the idea of being busy, why is that? Why do we have that thought? Hustle culture is the name of the game in society, but it's certainly far from the truth. Balance is required. We need the masculine hustle energy, and we also need the feminine receiving energy. What can we do to ensure we are achieving this? Scorpio, what is our preferred medium of expression? Is it something artistic like music or paint or visual art? Is it with actual words such as poetry or lyrics? Is it active such as sports or working out? What does this preferred medium tell about us? What is it about this medium that helps us feel as if we're expressing ourselves? What about this medium is giving us the feeling that we achieved expression? And how does that differ from our normal day-to-day communication? And how can we find a happy medium between the two? Sagittarius, how do our cultural backgrounds, beliefs, and ancestral lineage color our perception of the world? What have we taken from these things, made our own, and now see the world through the lens of? Are these perceptions that we still want to have? Is there a view that we'd like to change? Perhaps a view getting in the way of our overall success? How can we heal from limiting thoughts and plant the seed of the thoughts we want to embody? Capricorn, how do we best learn? Do we learn from hands-on experiencing or from observing? Do we learn visually, auditorially, kinetically, etc.? When was the last time we set aside time to learn something new or improve our understanding on a topic of interest? Do we often stimulate our brain, improve our IQ, train it and strengthen it? How can we use this time, period, to prioritize learning, as well as appreciate our learning styles? Aquarius, what are the topics that we do not know, but we want to know more about? And not just like in a, I'm interested kind of way, but in a way that we know will help provide a sense of security. Learning to budget, learning how to change a tire, learning how to public speak, etc. Where are we lacking knowledge that we really should have by now? How can we start the process of learning those things that we do not know, but we'd really like to know? And there we have it. Please remember to take these scopes with a grain of salt, consult an astrologer for how each transit will affect you. Just by even having your rising sign at a particular degree can change everything. Not to mention what all the planets are doing will affect exactly what will happen within your own chart. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please remember to resubscribe to the website's newsletter for emails on these episodes, monthly astro books, and more. My website is wildflowersinthesky.com. Additionally, you can email me at hello@wildflowersinthesky.com. I have to upload the last few episodes into my blog. They're not there right now. I'm so sorry. Upcoming episodes include full moon in Virgo, moon in Libra, moon in Scorpio. Thank you so much for being here with me. Happy Mercury in Pisces. And this episode's a little late. Sorry. I'm still trying to catch up, but we're doing it. We haven't missed one yet. So thank you so much for bearing with me. And I hope you have a great day.